if the director did what he said, which is go down on a computer and type out the notes, those are government records. Now, there is some executive privilege issues here at play, and you would think that the conversations between the president and the FBI director are probably most likely classified. This is different than going to your home diary and jotting down some notes about what you did that day. These are government records. When I had a chance to personally talk with Director Comey, he was very elusive on this point. I asked him specifically about the disposition, where the location was, and he would not talk about it.
What did that tell you?
It really raised an eyebrow, because I found on the phone when I talked to him, and I didn't have a lot of conversations with him, but a few, he was very open, he was laughing, he was jovial, but on this point, he was silent.
Are you aware that the president retweeted you saying that on Fox and Friends this morning?
No, I didn't.
About 4 hours ago, he tweeted out, Comey went silent when I asked him about his memos, which raised a lot of eyebrows.
Yeah.
He's saying that earlier today.
No, I'm glad he's...
First you heard of that.
Yes, it is the first. I'm glad he's going to Jason in the house. That's good.
You know, I was reading today that had Comey just made notes that paraphrased those conversations more colloquially rather than he said, I said, he said, I, that would also speak to the legality of this issue as well, because it would just be like, you know, I guess a couple of friends kind of talking, as you said, writing in a diary, but this is specifically different.
Well, again, talking directly to the president, you can, in that type of setting, being the FBI director, you don't just get to go off, take all those notes, and then give them to a friend who then gives it to the media with the intention of making that available so that the special prosecutor would be placed.
Or as it's been called, leaking.
Yes, and so it really does. He may have created some real legal problems for himself. You just simply cannot do this.
I disagree completely. I think what he's done is raise the threshold so much with Hillary Clinton, saying that she's essentially not accountable for mishandling classified information and forwarding it to people who shouldn't have access to it. He raised that bar so high that he doesn't even come close to meeting the threat.
Even more so?
He has created coverage for himself with the Hillary Clinton case.
His argument was that Hillary Clinton did not have the cognitive capability to determine what was classified and not classified. The director of the FBI is not going to be able to claim that he doesn't know the difference between classified and unclassified material.
He said it wasn't the cognitive capability. He said she didn't intend to do any harm to the country.
He did intend to get that information
and I agree with you. He wasn't just jotting down some haikus about the cherry blossoms in springtime. You know, this is a guy who was the director of the FBI, recording, documenting conversations that he had with the President of the United States in an official capacity. How is that not government material?
Real quickly, the Hill is also reporting that 4 of the memos had markings making them clearly contained information classified or secret or confidential.
And remember, though, but it was
markings, because we had that conversation with Hillary Clinton.
Well, again, and Director Comey went up there and said you don't necessarily have to have the markings on them.
But
you
4
should
of them
know.
did.
And even if they did, but let's pretend that they didn't. Again, the FBI director knows the difference.
He can offer classified information. He's one of the people who can absolutely do that. He can reclassify it, and he knows better because he has explained it to us in great detail.
What should happen to him?
Egregious sins. He should be fired again.
I mean, seriously, what should happen to him?
Well, look, as a general premise, you cannot take classified information and release it.
I got it.
If you do, you should have handcuffs on you and should go to jail. That's what should happen to people. Look, we just had a young woman who took classified information, printed it out, and gave it to a reporter. And what did they do? They put her in jail. Now, should that standard be different if you're really high up in the government or you're a 20-something-year-old female?
Why is it different?
It's one of the things that drives me crazy.
Anyone outside of the Department of Justice?
Yes. The President tweeted on Friday, after I got fired, that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel.
They're federal records, but if this is true, no official can just give these documents out. And in the case of James Comey, what he testified to is he gave them to a friend to give them to the media.
You can't do that. It's against the law.
Let's focus on what really affects Americans here. You have an FBI director yet again going rogue. It was like the year of Jim Comey going rogue. First, he's holding press availabilities. Then he's testifying under oath. He's saying Hillary Clinton did so many bad things, but we're not going to prosecute her. Now we know he's sitting in his car. That's a little odd. Typing things up the moment he leaves something with the president. By the way, we don't know that his recollection is factual and accurate. We do know, it seems, that the information contained in those memorandum, though, are confidential, if not classified.
Well, Charlie Gard is getting one last shot at life. He's an 11-month-old baby. He's severely ill. His parents are hoping they can extend his life with experimental treatments here in the United States. They want to pay for those treatments themselves. But a panel of British doctors say the boy should be killed immediately instead, and they're calling that mercy. Now, a judge on Britain's High Court has given Gard's parents 2 days to come up with evidence their son should be allowed to live, come to the United States for treatments. It's all before a Thursday hearing that will decide ultimately what happened. Charles Krauthammer is, among many other things, a physician and an ethicist, and he joins us now to talk about this. So there are two different ways of looking at this, Charles. You and I have talked about this. And one is from the personal perspective, and the other is from the legal perspective. In other words, what should the parents do? And then what should the state allow the parents to do? How would you divide those up?
Look, I think the real tragedy here is there are two principles in conflict, and they are essentially the parents are sovereign.
Yes.
But the parents can be wrong.
Yes.
And we have to tolerate the two facts. In this particular case, I think the parents are wrong. If it were me, looking at the objective evidence, I think this child is in terrible distress. He can't hear, he can't see, he can't move, he cannot swallow. He's intubated. I've been intubated for weeks at a time. And I can tell you it's a life of distress, on the edge of despair. And this child can't speak. I was an adult at the time. I could speak. He can't speak. The merciful thing to do, I believe, if it were my choice, if I were king, would be to remove the tubes, allow the child to die, and to end the suffering. The parents think otherwise. I think in the end, these issues are irresolvable, and therefore we ought to allow the decision to be made by those who love the child the most, who have the most pure of motives. And in this case, it's the parents who want to bring him to wherever. I think this is a cruel hoax, this holding out of hope for a disease that is utterly incurable. There are people, this happens every time you have a terrible case like this. Some hospital or doctor will claim he's got some kind of new treatment. I don't believe a word of it. However, the parents do. They want to bring Charlie here for treatment. I say they ought to be sovereign, ought to be the one who decides.
How can we have a system?
That's why it's a tragedy.
Well, it is. And whatever you think about their decision, do you want to live in a society where the government can make this decision for your child? I mean, when did we cede the right to make these decisions for our own children?
Well, I can give you an extreme example where you would agree the state ought to step in.
Well, if the parents are negligent or crazy or non-compass menace or drunk,
not
I get
crazy.
it.
If they're Christian Scientists and they don't want to allow blood to be transfused, the state steps in and says, I'm sorry, you're no longer sovereign, you're endangering the child.
To save the life of the child.
I agree.
The state is stepping in here to kill the child.
Well, the word kill, I think, is a loaded word. This is stepping in to remove the artificial means that are being used to keep a child in what I would call a state of utter distress. At the best. Look, parents can make a mistake. The state at some points has to step in for parents who aren't insane, but who may have a religious belief or some other that threatens a child. But these are rare cases, and I think that generally speaking, since there is no way to adjudicate this in a way that's objective. There are no objective values. It has to be in the hands of the parents, which is why I would say to the state, let them do what they think is right for the child, even though I disagree.
Of course, but I mean, there are many things that you see people do with their children you disagree with, but you know, parents have to be in charge.
Well, there is no other rule.
Yeah.
There's no other bright line you could follow that would be reliable, and that's the most reliable.
Charles
Parents care.
Thank you.
Like Cuomo, apparently, he cares as well. Parents care more.
He cares a lot
about the children.
Even as you sleep, he's caring.